It all began with a special encounter with stray cats at a tomato farm. One cold January day, when the wind was biting hard, two stray cats started appearing near the small cabin by the greenhouse. One was big and strong, white fur with black spots, confident and proud. The other looked weak, with patchy brown fur and a tired face. It was winter, water had frozen, and food was scarce. Feeling sorry for them, I started leaving some food and water inside the cabin after the Lunar New Year holidays. By the end of February, when the weather began to warm up, I started hearing faint cries of kittens near the cabin. A day passed, then two, but the crying didn't stop. After about a week, the sound grew louder, non-stop, day and night. So I followed the sound, and there, under the container, was a tiny kitten trembling all alone. No other cats were around. The next day, I followed the crying again. Up near the container, inside a pile of old blankets, I found 4 tiny kittens standing in a row, crying with their mouths open like baby sparrows. The mother was gone and never came back. When I reached out my hand, most of them were scared, but one brave little kitten walked straight toward me without hesitation. That kitten is now the one who runs to me whenever it hears my footsteps, the cat of my farm cabin. At first, I wasn't ready to care for such fragile lives. I rushed to the store, bought some milk, and fed them carefully with a spoon, spilling most of it on the floor. Later, I got baby bottles, switched to lactose-free milk, and soon after, even started feeding them kitten food. They could barely open their eyes at first, but day by day, they grew stronger and livelier. Soon they were running all over the container. And yes, leaving little surprises everywhere. The one who covers well with sand, I named Walnut. The one who doesn't bother, Grape. And together they became my little Dungo, the poop kitty duo. But the truth is, I wasn't in a place where I could keep cats. So I thought, once they grow a bit more, I'll let them return to nature. I believed they'd be fine as long as they had each other. Time passed, and by early summer, they had grown so much. I built them a small shelter just outside the container. Even though it was inside the farm area, wild animals sometimes came through the cracks in the door. Still, for a few days, they seemed to be doing fine, always sticking close together. I thought, thank goodness they have each other. But just as I began to relax, something happened that made my heart sink. That story I'll tell you in the next episode.
Under the gentle warmth of spring sunlight, 2 adorable cats, Walnut and Grape, lived near a small farm cabin. At first, they only played around the cabin, but lately, they had begun to explore farther, curious about the world beyond. Then one day, a large male cat started appearing around the cabin, wandering by once or twice a week. I worried he might harm the young ones, but since nothing had happened so far, I thought it would be fine. That day, I visited the cabin as usual, but the kittens, who always came running to greet me, were nowhere to be seen. Maybe they've gone exploring a bit farther today, I thought. Just then, I heard a soft, trembling meow. Grape slowly walked toward me. Grape, where's Walnut? I looked around the cabin, but Walnut was nowhere to be found. When I stepped outside the back door, a short distance away, there lay Walnut, silent and still. There were no big wounds, just a small trace of blood by the mouth. Perhaps he had been bitten at a vital spot, gone in an instant, without a chance to fight back. At that moment, I remembered the big tomcat that had been lurking nearby for days. There was no proof, but the thought that he might be the reason wouldn't leave my mind. I buried Walnut quietly beneath the apple tree by the stream. My hands trembled, and my heart sank heavy with grief. Only then did it truly hit me. This place was still the wild. A neighbor had recently told me a wildcat had killed a mother cat nearby, leaving behind only her paws. Could it be that these kittens' mother had met the same fate? A bitter thought crossed my mind. Walnut was always full of curiosity, the bold one who led every adventure. Maybe it was that same curious spirit that made him leave this world too soon. Now, only Grape remains at the cabin. At first, she hid away, frightened and alone. but slowly, she began to change. She started visiting the neighboring farms, exploring every corner of the greenhouses with growing confidence. When I rest, she comes close and rubs her face against mine. When I work, she wanders among the rows of tomatoes and sometimes curls up by my feet to nap. Sometimes, I find her sitting inside the tomato boxes, adorable but exasperating. Other times, she leaves her droppings around the greenhouse, earning her the nickname Poop Cat. She scratches up the boxes with her claws and even climbs onto the plastic roof, leaving tiny holes behind. Perhaps cats shouldn't live near greenhouses. I think about trimming her claws, but worry she still needs them to survive in the wild. Yet if I leave her be, the holes keep increasing. And so, little by little, Grape is growing into an adult cat. But life on the farm still has more trials waiting for her. She is a half-wild cat, living between life and death. What new story awaits this brave little girl named Grape?
It had been about 6 months since I rescued Poto. One concern began to grow in my mind. The farm was already home to many stray cats, and if Poto were to get pregnant, the place would soon become a kingdom of cats. Fortunately, I learned that the city was offering a free neutering program for stray cats, so I applied right away. The next morning, they said they'd come to pick her up. I worried she might wander off to another farm by morning, so I had no choice but to keep her in a cage overnight. It was Poto's first time being confined, and she was extremely anxious. I placed a cardboard box inside to comfort her, but by the next morning, she had completely shredded it to pieces. Maybe that was how she tried to relieve her stress. 3 days after the surgery, Poto returned to the farm. But soon, I noticed something strange. Her left ear looked shorter. Who did that? Why? I thought in shock. Later, I learned that stray cats who undergo surgery have the tip of one ear clipped to indicate that they've been neutered. It broke my heart, wondering if there was another way. That's how Poto faced her first ordeal. An unwanted surgery and a marked ear. Poto's second ordeal. One day, a neighbor came to the farm angrily. "Your cat scratched up our boxes," they complained. There were so many stray cats around the area. I couldn't be sure it was Poto, and they didn't have any proof either. So I just listened quietly. The neighbor then said, "I'll bring a trap. If you catch that cat, I'll take it somewhere far away." Without hesitation, I replied, "Go ahead, bring it." Perhaps they realized I wouldn't be easily intimidated, because they never returned with the trap, nor did they ever come back again. If that trap had really been set, if that moment had turned into reality, Poto might not be here with us today. That day became her second and most dangerous ordeal, a brush with fate that could have ended everything. Poto's third ordeal. The third ordeal came with Poto's first winter. During the cold season, the farm becomes still, a quiet place with few people around, and the rural winter cold is truly unforgiving. Fortunately, one of the neighboring farms kept growing crops through the winter, so Poto often wandered there to stay warm and find shelter. When I came late at night to feed her, I'd often see her emerging from that direction, running toward me at the sound of my car. But the water I left out would freeze solid, and the food I set down was often eaten by bigger, stronger strays before she could touch it. Despite the hunger, despite the biting cold, Poto endured, learning to survive, little by little. That harsh first winter made her stronger than ever. Through hardship, she was becoming a survivor of the wild.